What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trick 10s. This is part 4 of Project X. This thing is sick, man. I wait for these builds every year. At the end of the year, I always do a crazy build. This is what it's all about to me. I love challenging myself and doing something new. And I've done a lot of crazy stuff in this project already. And this thing is about to get even sicker. I just cut these pieces yesterday at the shop. These are the 1x3 tubing. I touched on this in part 3 where I was gonna change the entire top gunnel of this boat. So I took the 1x3 tubing. You can see, got a couple pieces here. These are basically just cut with 1.25 inch gap in the center. I ran it through a table saw with an aluminum cutting blade, and I took a little bit of weight out of it. But these pieces, both are gonna run on either side of the boat. It's basically 14 feet from the transom up to the front V where it stops. It's 1652, so you got 2 feet in the V at the front. So I weighed my options versus putting it in and not putting it in. But putting it in, you only lose about 20 pounds of extra weight in the boat, but what you gain is astronomical. This whole top gunnel piece is gonna be 1,000 times stronger than the round pipe that was already in there. Plus you have a place to hide your LED lights up underneath of them. And on top of that, it gives me a space where I can put some of this CNC cut turf. Now this is gonna be sick, because this turf is gonna be cut where it'll have like an outline of a border and it's going to look dope. We can add some logos and stuff into it. Not only that, it changes the look from a Jonboat into a real bass boat. So I'm hyped about this. The only boat I've ever done this in is King Neptune, and that's probably the only other boat in the world that has a top gunnel cap on it like this. The hardest part about doing this is bringing this all the way back to the transom and blending it, and then bringing it all the way up to the front and blending it into the V. Because look at this. This is crazy, right? We got to cut all of this out. You see where this is sitting? This is the piece I just dropped up here just to see how it would work. It's going to work out great, but I've got to cut this entire back corner transom out, and then I've got to drop this thing in here and weld it and make it look like it was meant to be, like it's part of the boat, like that's how it came. This is why you don't see a lot of guys doing this stuff, because it takes an extreme amount of skill and fabrication and welding in order to make this thing happen. We're gonna get this thing wrapped up pretty quick because I'm getting ready to get this thing scanned next week, and I've got a little bit more metal work to figure out inside of the boat. Obviously, I got a ton of stuff in here. I got all of my stuff for the drop-in cooler we're gonna put in here. I gotta weld the box for that and figure that out. A couple little pieces of sheeting, and I gotta figure out this electronics box is gonna go in the side panel over here. But other than that, guys, this is definitely gonna be build of the year. It might even be build of a lifetime. I hope you guys are subscribed to the channel because you do not want to miss this build. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, so check this out. God, man, that is so dope. It changes the whole look of the boat. Nobody is doing this. This is something that is kind of nerve-wracking. I mean, to me, I was excited. I was like, yes, let's do it. Let's build this. This is gonna be dope. I was hyped about cutting this out, but look what I did. Let's take this piece off of here. I opened this whole boat up like a can of sardines, man. This is gonna be sick. This changes the whole look of the boat. It changes pretty much the whole boat. I mean, people are gonna look at this boat and they're not gonna know this is a well built. They're gonna be like, oh, what is that? It's a custom build. That's what it is, it's a custom build. This is gonna be sick though. I've gotta notch this piece out a little bit more to get it to suck back flush with the transom, and then we're gonna follow it on up. We're probably gonna be able to come probably about 8 feet before we have to cut it. And then we're gonna splice it, because you see the side of the rail, it tapers up pretty dramatic up in this area right here. So we're gonna cut it about 8 feet, and then I'll see how much more of a piece I can fit in here. Probably gonna be somewhere around, you know, 3.5 to 4 feet, and then we'll have another 3-foot piece or whatever to finish it off up there. I've also got to cut through this up here. So when we get closer, then I'll come back and do the same thing, cut through this front V right here, and it's gonna change the whole layout of the build. It's gonna be dope, man. Anybody who thinks they're doing this, well, good luck to you, brother. This is not something that you can just do on a whim. You need to have a little bit of experience, because when you come back and weld this, This is important because this thing is thin. This is like 080 and it's gonna wanna bend and flex. And you got about a 13-inch weld, it's gonna have to go across here. It has to be solid and weld it across the back, cap it off. It's pretty involved, but it's not as hard as it seems. And this is sick, man. I'm hyped about this. Let's get this thing finished up. Let's get back to work. All right, guys, we made a lot of progress. This thing looks sick, right? Killer build, man. I love the layout. It has so much going into it at this point to get the scan right that it is just blowing my mind. But I love this top cap rail. I mean, the way that back corner finished off and that exposed weld is in there. Whew, that thing is sexy. Same thing on the other side. Look at this front up here. It looks really good. See, I kept that angle, original angle, which is something I did not do in King Neptune. And man, it just makes it look so good. Same thing on the other side. That whole angle just follows up. The thing looks dope. Now this piece up here is for the trolling motor. I actually built this, and you can see it's got some little welds I cut off on it. I put this in the 1860 because I thought that was gonna be the right piece for it, but it didn't work out. I just brought it home and it's pretty much damn near perfect for what I'm gonna do with this boat. So I'm gonna try to get that mounted here shortly too, because the customer stopped by and dropped off this brand new Minn Kota Ultrex. Now this thing is sick. I know you guys are like, oh yeah, it's an Ultrex, cool. Well, this is not just an Ultrex, this is the Quest. This thing is brand new, just came out. Like I've never even seen one of these before. This thing is expensive, man. This thing costs a lot of money, a whole lot more than a regular Ultrex. And I'm excited to get this thing installed on the boat. And I honestly want to play around with it once we get it out in the water, because that's a dope ass trolling motor and it's brand new, just hit the market. The layout is sick. I gotta put a couple of rivets in all these hatches just to hold everything down so we can get the scan, because the scan is very, very critical. Now I was talking to my buddy, Anthony Jones with Brigade Boats, because he's literally the only guy that I know that has built a custom boat and turfed it with some of the CNC cut turf that I talked to. I mean, I talked to a lot of guys that build boats, but no one that has built a custom build that's, you know, similar to the customization that we've got in here and then had it scanned. And I just wanted some pointers because I've never done it before. And he told me some things that make a lot of sense. And it's really kind of nerve-wracking after talking to him. I've got one chance of getting this thing scanned right. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. I mean, some things that I was kind of thinking about, but he reiterated that were very important. So those type of things are stuff that I need to take into consideration. He's been there and done that. And he's got a pretty cool YouTube channel, guys. He's got a lot of boat builds and he's doing big stuff. And he's a cool cat. So go check him out on Brigade Boats, Anthony Jones on YouTube. But one of the things he was telling me, so let's say right here, this would be one piece of CNC cut turf. Now it's gonna fit over this hatch perfectly. It's gonna have a border. It's probably gonna say Trick 10s or whatever he wants it to say on here. It's gonna have a cutout for my handle. Well, then the next piece is not gonna be a gigantic grid where I'm gonna have to pull it all the way back and it's gonna fit in between all of these. No, it's not gonna be like that because it's gonna be impossible to install. What it's gonna probably be is one long piece that comes all the way across here and finishes off back here. Then it's gonna have another strip that's gonna go in between here and so on over here and whatever. But that is gonna mean that where these pieces meet up here and here, there might be a tiny little gap right there. So I'm not only gonna have to paint the side rails and the gunnels and stuff, but I'm gonna have to paint pieces of this deck, which is something that I was kind of figuring on. I don't have to do that now, but once I get all this CNC cut turf here, he told me what he does is he just puts it all in where it needs to be and sets it all out, and then comes back and makes notes on his deck where it has a possibility of being exposed, and then he takes it all out, paints those spots real good before the final install. That makes a lot of sense, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do with it. But with that being said, I also have to make sure that all of my pieces are nice and smooth transitions, and I might have to do some caulking. And he said that's one thing that he does. He does caulk, especially along the side, like up in here, because when you install the sheet turf, I run it all the way up and then cut it off. And that turf is literally waterproof. When I cut it across here, no water's gonna get in there. So he uses like a black caulking up in here, and that's probably something I'm gonna do, or at least along the sides and maybe in between some of these hatches and stuff. So I do appreciate the knowledge, Anthony. It definitely helps out. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna try to finish up this side over here. Obviously, I went ahead and I built these pieces here. Now, you didn't see that already, but this is gonna be a hatch that does not have a door on it. It's gonna be an exposed hatch. I'm gonna make a sheet that goes across here and screws in with like 4 attachment points, and that's gonna have his switch panel in it, and then 2 attachments that are gonna have the timer and the switch for his live well. Now, he didn't wanna have those electronics inside of a hatch. He just wanted to be open, and that's fine. They're waterproof. It'll be fine to sit them right in there, and it will give it some flair. I'm probably gonna make that whole sheet to cover this and get it powder coated when I get all these hatches powder coated. So it's gonna be pretty dope, but that is important. I need to get that installed. This sheet I put in here and this other sheet right here. Now I gotta put some pieces in between these so I have something to attach them to and something that will fill in these little gaps behind here. Now this side is pretty much almost wrapped up. I mean, the layout's there. I do need to attach this top piece, and all these pieces are free floating. So once I get those two pieces in here, maybe one on this corner up here, then I'm gonna cut a cup holder in there. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna put a cup holder in this side right here. Then I gotta figure out my floor drain, because the piece of turf that goes into this floor is gonna be intricate. Obviously it's got this 45 on this side over here, and this thing has to fit perfect. I gotta get this thing scanned, and it's gotta be right the first time. So I was gonna put like 2 of these smaller drain holes in here, but I came up with the idea to just make my own drains, because I do this all the time and it would be sick. So had my buddy Houston cut these out on his water jet table. The TT for Trick 10s, these are dope. This is what I'm gonna use for this boat. Now there's plenty of room. This hole inside of here, this is like 5/16 of an inch, and that's gonna allow plenty of water to get through those 2 T's. I am gonna come back and hit these with a countersink. And then what I'm gonna do with this one, I'm gonna put this in the center, something like that. I'm gonna go ahead and get that with a couple of screws in it. So when they scan it, they can scan that there's gonna be a little circle right there cut out with the border. The cool thing about this one is that it's 3/16 of an inch thick, which is basically about what the turf thickness is gonna be once they stack them. It's like a 6 mil. So this is gonna be very close and very similar to the same height. I'm probably gonna get this powder coated to the same color as the hatches, so it's gonna look dope. Now, this one is the one that I would use if I was gonna get it CNC cut, and if I'm not, then I would just go ahead and put the sheet turf in, and then I got this one. I'm gonna start selling both styles of these very shortly. This one is made out of stainless steel. It's a brush 16 gauge, 316 stainless. Now, if you're gonna use this one, then obviously your boat's already gonna have turf in the floor. All you're gonna have to do is cut a hole in the center with a hole saw, and then put this over top of it and put your 3 screws in. And the turf that's in the boat already will act like a gasket to seal it off so that water will have to go down through that hole. With this one's gonna mount directly to the metal. So it's gonna be a little bit different. So what I'm gonna do with this one before I permanently install it is I'm just gonna come around this lip right here with a small little bead of some silicone or some 5200 before I permanently install it. That way, any of the water that seeps through those T's doesn't run up underneath my turf. It'll run straight through and through this bottom floor, down to the bottom of the boat, and back out to the bilge pump. You guys can look for these pieces, for these drains, coming soon on my website. I don't know how much they're gonna be, but you know me, I'm gonna make them as cheap as possible for you guys. The last piece that I'm gonna have to do up on this side is I'm gonna do some type of a drop-in pan either here or up in this face. I'm thinking I might just do it up here on the top. Originally, I was gonna bring it in from the side, but it might be cooler just to have it right here, and I can make it pretty deep. It could probably come down at least about 6 inches, and it would just be like a little drop-in tray that he could just throw stuff in. If he ties something on and it doesn't work, he wants to drop it in here, you can just throw it in here. At the end of the day, it's something you just grab everything out of, and then you can sort it out at a later date. So I'm thinking that's what I'm gonna do with that. Then he also bought this piece right here. Let's go around the other side and I'll show you what this is. All right, so we got these 2 pieces here. Now these are pretty cool. It's some type of a hard plastic. I don't know if these are 3D printed or this is like a UHMW, but it looks sick. It kind of looks like it's machined, so I don't think it's 3D printed. This is basically like a plier holder, and this thing is gonna mount right here. So I gotta get that installed also, because obviously it's gonna have a border cut around that. And then he's got this thing right here, which is basically like a die holder in case you want to hold some dies in there, like you wanna have a chartreuse die. It's just like a dip. It's almost like paint, and the little paint cans will sit inside of here. And then I guess these are for brushes. I don't really know, but he told me you just dip your tail of your bait or whatever in there, and he wants to have this mounted in here. So I'm gonna put this up inside of one of these compartments. So I don't need to worry about this right now, but I just wanted to show you guys that because I thought it's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not a big bass fisherman, and this is something I don't really know anything about, but it's gonna be a cool little add-on. So those are just more pieces of the puzzle that I have to figure out. Now check this out. This is something that I do with a lot of the builds. You can see right here, you're like, whoa, what? Look at that. He's got welds on his hatch so that this hatch now is a lot bigger. What's up with that? Well, you see inside of there, I don't really have a lot of places to attach this sheet down for my front deck sheeting. So I went ahead and welded it to this. Now I do this with some of the big hatches, and you can see up here, this one is not attached. So this one's fine though, because I got that whole piece of tubing underneath there where I can come back and shoot my rivets through there. This one, I didn't have that. So what I did was I just cut a piece and I tapered it back and it fits pretty good up on the side over here. That one over there, a little bit different story. I got a little bit of a gap in that one, so I'm gonna redo that one. I'm gonna try to get all the rest of this metalwork in here finished up. I'll circle back with you guys, and then we're gonna get this thing scanned. Let's get back to work. So as you just saw in that last clip, I did have to take that rod locker hatch out. I cut the piece off that I welded on there, and I made a new piece for it. The thing fits like a glove now. It's nice and tight all the way up against the side of the hull. It's gonna be perfect, and this thing gets scanned. It's not gonna have a gap in there. Now, the first time I ever did that in a boat was on the N10, and I did that on like 3 hatches. I did it for different reasons, besides sucking it to the hull, because that boat build had, like, the benches were rolled dramatically, so I needed to extend those hatches and stuff over to get away from the actual deck that was rolled on the benches, and it worked out good. So I incorporated it into this build. I'm probably going to incorporate that into a lot of my builds. That is the option that I have because I'm a metal fabricator. I can manipulate this metal and make it work any way I need it to. That's what makes it fun to me, and that's why I do this. Now, I did not realize how much is going to go into getting all this stuff ready to scan for this turf at this stage of the game. I still have a little bit of work to do. I've got to put this trolling motor on here. Not just the trolling motor, I got to cut the hole for the recessed foot pedal tray. I got to stage up the graph bridge and get that thing installed, and all of that stuff takes time. Figuring out all of those pieces of the puzzle at this stage of the game is not something I'm used to, but I've got to do that because I got to make sure they're in the right place because the turf's going to be CNC cut around all of those pieces up in that front deck. So I still got to do that, but this video is getting kind of long. I know that you guys are watching this video on Tuesday, the 2nd of January, because right now, tonight, when I'm recording this, it is New Year's Eve, and tomorrow's New Year's Eve, and I'm going to be spending it with the family. So I'm trying to wrap this thing up and get as much done as I can now, because on New Year's Day, I'm going to finish up editing this video, and I'm going to drop it to you guys, and that's why you're watching it right now. Now, I know that the customer wants his boat, and trust me, I want this project to be done, but I'm not going to cut corners, and I'm not going to rush anything. This is art. I've got to get this thing perfect, and I'm going to do it right the first time. This is going to be the franchise build for everything that I've been working for up until this day. I'm excited to finish this thing up. It's going to happen. It's going to happen soon because I'm putting a lot of time into this build. So make sure that you guys hit that like and subscribe button and stick around because you don't want to miss this. If you guys want to help me out, go check out tricktens.net and cop some of my merch. Please help me out, guys. I got a ton of merch. I'm trying to move. I want to get some new stuff coming in first of the year. I hope you guys have a happy new year. And I look forward to part 5 of this build. This is Project X, part 4. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's get back to work. What are you guys still doing here? I thought that you would figure the video was already over and you'd be gone by now. Well, I'm glad you stuck around. I wanted to show off these side panels. These things are sick. I did not go over these in the end of the video. I'm gonna give you all a little walkthrough of these things. They turned out really dope. Just check it out. Wow, this build is turning out to be insane. Now I realized I did not give this whole side panel over here the credit that it needed with a full walkthrough. This thing turned out sick though, man. It's gonna be so dope once the turf is cut up here. Now, the way I did this, I cut a hole for this with a hole saw. I used the same size hole saw to cut a hole here and here, cut between them with a grinder, and came back and cleaned that hole up. Now, the box that goes inside of there is rectangular, and I mounted that from the bottom with these rivets here. And once this thing gets turfed, it's gonna look killer. You're never gonna see any of these rivets. It's gonna have a border around all of these hole openings. It's gonna be dope. This is basically just a spot for him to throw his cell phone or, you know, his terminal tackle, stuff that he cuts off and he's not using and doesn't feel like putting away. That's your catch-all right there. Throw all your stuff in there, end of the day, clean it out. I'm gonna turf inside of this hatch, and obviously this is gonna have turf on the whole top of it. It's gonna be dope. I did the same kind of deal on this side with the cup holder, but I could not put any type of other trays or pans inside of here because he's gonna have his graph up here on a balls out swing arm. So I had to make this thing strong. I did put some extra supports underneath here. I mean, this whole thing is super strong. You can walk on this thing easily. It turned out really dope. The whole build is just crazy, man. I just wanted to share this with you guys. I appreciate y'all watching, man. I'll see y'all next time. Let's get back to work.